So this is the time of year where many of us are looking at how are we going to make the next year even better than this year? And one of the big things that I see always come up is revenue, right? Like what's going to happen with the cash flow? How are you going to shift your revenue goals? So today, what I want to talk about is the step in my Profit Explosion Toolkit where we figure out how to give you a huge revenue raise. It might be 5x, it might be doubling your revenue. It may be that you're really going to go for it and do a 10x increase, right? But today, let's unpack my three most consistent strategies that I've seen work really well when you're ready to get a big revenue burst happening in your business. So it's Melanie Benson here, excited to be doing these lives again. It's been a little while since I was consistent with it. And I realized there's so many things that we talk about here in the Amplify Your Authority group that the Profit Explosion Toolkit really helps. So I've been doing a little mini series and unpacking how these 4 steps are going to make your new year. We're talking about 2022s. We're closing out 2021 and help you really like ramp up the revenue. So first of all, I'm kind of curious, is getting an increase of revenue or making more money one of your goals for 2022? Is that something that if you could have a simple way to rapidly and massively increase revenue, would that be helpful? Give me a little shout out and let me know if that's on your mind. Now, what I have found is there's at least 3 ways to quickly and I think rather easily increase the revenues in your business. So I'm going to talk about these. I go into these in depth in the Profit Explosion Toolkit training. So if you're like, yeah, how does this work? You can definitely get your hands on that while it's on holiday special right now. I'll give you a little more details about that later. But let me just grab my notes here because the 3 things I'm going to talk about are things that I've been working with clients all the way through the year in the Amplify Your Authority group. It is the same thing that I teach, as I mentioned, in Profit Explosion Toolkit. And it's oftentimes the things that people talk themselves out of doing because on some level they think that's not going to work for me. And the first one is raising your prices. Second one is selling more. And the third is introducing a high ticket offer. So let me unpack each of these a little bit for you. My most absolute tried and true process is raising your prices. Now, I remember I was hired for a VIP day with somebody who wanted to double their revenues. And she was like one of the top authorities in her industry. And when she came to me, one of the first things she said is, I've tried everything to increase my revenues and nothing is working. And I looked at what she was charging and I knew what kind of results she was getting. And I said, you need to raise your prices. And her answer to me was, I'm already charging more than my competitors. I can't raise my prices. So needless to say, she did not necessarily get the biggest bang for the buck out of our time together because she went in limited in her belief about what was possible. Now, let me contrast that with a VIP package I did earlier this year, where again, the gentleman came to me and he said, Melanie, I want to increase my revenues and work less in the business. So we looked at a lot of different ways to do that. And finally, what I said to him is, I think your best path is to raise your rates. And again, he said, I don't know, Melanie, I'm already pretty expensive. And I don't know if my clients would do that. And I said, if I can show you how to raise your prices, would you? I mean, and to get your clients to say yes to it. And he goes, absolutely. Because here's what happens when we raise our prices. When we raise our prices, 2 things happen. One, we don't have to work as hard to get the same amount of money coming in. So it's like an instant raise. And for many people, we can work less in the business. Secondly, when you raise your prices, you start attracting a different caliber of client. And that might require a little adjusting, but oftentimes when we raise our prices, we attract clients who get more out of our work because they're operating at a different vibration. They're operating in a more expansive, abundant reality. And so they're willing to invest more and they're like going to implement because they are putting more into the work together, they're going to implement to get the results and get a good return on investment. So those are just a couple of reasons to raise your prices. But what I did with my second client was, again, I showed him how he was producing a result that you couldn't even replicate that result for the client in the stock market. Like, there's no other place on the planet where someone could invest in his fee and get the return he was bringing his clients. That is a very powerful positioning to come when you raise your prices. So what most people get stuck on is, oh, I'm just going to raise my prices, I'm going to lose all my clients. Not if you do it right. Not if you create what I call a bridge strategy, where you bridge people into your new pricing. So there's a lot of ways to tackle that. I'm not going to digress into that here, but just know I'm never going to suggest that you double your prices on all your clients, but you can bridge people, your current clients, into new pricing, and you can introduce new pricing to the clients that are coming your way next, and they have no idea that there's new pricing, right? So either way, raising your prices is a really solid way to increase revenues. Now, let's say, so with the second client, I actually doubled his rates. Not every one of his clients got doubled. Some of them, we did something in the middle. But what he was hearing is, oh, you're worth 10 times this. Okay, so by raising his prices, what he did was he literally cut his workload in half for 2022, but he doubled his revenue. So he was working half as much as he was, because he could go to less events, but he was making just as much money, and it was brilliant. So raising your prices is a solid strategy. And if you haven't raised your prices in a while, this might be the time to do it. I have another client in Amplify Mastermind, and well, actually, I gave all my clients, I told all my clients to raise their prices except for one who had already done it before. And they all did. And they were all getting buy-in from their clients. And so oftentimes we're undercharging, or we don't have the confidence to raise our prices because we think, man, I'm struggling to get clients right now. How am I going to charge more? It's very interesting what happens. Sometimes you actually get more clients with the higher price than you do at the price you are now. So that's strategy number one, to raise your revenue in 2022. And one of the ways you can tell it's time to raise your prices, if you're going to do Profit Explosion Toolkit and you're going to get the downloadable program, the first steps are to set a revenue goal, to set your big goals for the year. And then I have you do this revenue mapping, where I have you look at where your revenue is coming from. And oftentimes what you'll see very quickly is you're not selling enough of the thing that makes the best impact in the world, or is the most popular thing. So you want to raise your prices if the thing that's most popular solves a really costly problem. And you realize, like, man, I'm making people millions of dollars, or I'm making them thousands of dollars a month, and I'm not charging nearly enough. So that's one of the signs you need to raise your prices. And that will get crystal clear for you doing the revenue planning step. Now, the other thing that gets crystal clear is you're not selling enough of your best performing offer. That's why this second step is so critical. And I highly recommend you do it before you get too deep into figuring out, are you going to introduce new offers next year? Is it time for you to put a new package together, right? Well, let's get the evidence of what's working and what's not. And doing this in kind of a facts and data approach will help you see what's actually happening rather than the story we're making up in our mind. So oftentimes in our mind, we have a picture of what's happening, but when we look at the data, we see it a little bit differently. And that's why I like getting it out of my head and onto paper. So the second strategy is selling more. And if you're thinking, I'm trying to sell more, Melanie, and it's not working, then chances are you don't have the right message, you don't have the right offering, or you're not selling it to the right audience. I was working with a woman several years ago. You might have heard the story before. She's an accountant, and she came to me. She was studying with someone else at the time, and they were working on an online offering, but it wasn't to her core audience. It was to her peers. And it was a $2,000 product, which was a really good product for that market. but she was spending like 60 to 70% of her time trying to move this $2,000 offer. And when I took her through this second step in revenue rush planning, what she saw very quickly was, OMG, like I'm spending 60 to 70% of my month on an offer that actually was very low in the revenue contribution to her business goals. And what that means is sometimes we spend an enormous amount of money and time on something that's actually not moving the needle towards our goal. And just seeing that, I could have a real conversation with her and I could say, look, you want to hit $1 million in revenue and you want to work 4 days a week. Would that be nice? 4 hours a week. If you want to work 4 days a week, you're going to have to focus on a profit amplifier, something that can produce more profit and is not so hard to sell. So I refocused her on something that was super easy to sell, produced somewhere between $2,000 and $10,000 in revenue every time she sold it. And this is the bonus, when she sold it, those clients actually wanted to continue to work with her either for bookkeeping and or accounting services, which means by selling that upfront package, she kept revenue coming in consistently. So when I talk about selling more, what I'm talking about is let's uncover something that when you sell it, you're actually moving the revenue needle the right way. And hopefully it's actually keeping that client wanting more from you. When you sell more, you have to make sure that you're selling the right things. And they're the things that you don't have to like spend hours and hours and hours to do it. They're the things that your community is hungry for. And if you don't know what that offer is, we definitely got to get that figured out in the new year, because when you have the right offer, it actually is irresistible. It's magnetic, it's easy. And yeah, it like makes the whole thing sell more, right? Like you're just able to sell a lot more. So selling more is the second thing. And that might mean you need to retool some of your offers. You might need to magnetize your message to get that to work. But if you know what you do is priced well and you're pretty sure that you're in the right audience, that's the thing I'd focus on, is how can you increase the sales to people who really need it? And it may just be you need to be more visible. So there's a lot of things we unpack in that. As a matter of fact, you might want to listen to this week's Amplify Your Success podcast. It's episode 260 if you're catching this later, where I talk about how to use 90 days of business coaching to improve your cash flow. I literally map out the 5-step formula in that podcast episode. So that's what you want to do if you want to sell more, is follow that process. Now, let's talk about the third one. And honestly, this is one of my absolute favorite strategies. I gave my entire Amplify Mastermind a challenge this year to introduce this into their business model, and that's VIP days. Now, VIP days are a high ticket offer. There's a lot of different ways you can do high ticket offers. You can have a done for you model. You can have a consulting package. You can have some kind of an advanced audit or assessment. But think of it, it's like the key to a high ticket offer is you are selling a costly problem and accelerating the process. And with VIP days, the idea is it's like a 4 to 5 figure investment. Sometimes it's even a 6-figure investment. And there's so many different ways to create this kind of model. I've been hearing about some really cool things that people are doing, from all the way to like sponsorship, like annual sponsorship packages, concierge services where people, you get locked into like this high level service. I know a lot of lawyers that do this, and they make an investment of like $100K to lock you down for the year to have you be available to them when they need it. So the key to a VIP offer and or a high ticket offer is you have to really understand what is the costly problem you solve and who has that problem and is willing to invest to accelerate the result. Now, the idea of a VIP day is to accelerate it into a package, right? So I really want to focus in mostly on VIP days here, because I find for most people who are course creators, consultants, coaches, service providers, there's some kind of problem you solve that if you package it right and you learn how to offer it and sell it, that you can actually boost your revenue significantly in a short period of time. Especially if you know who your client base is that doesn't want to mess around with long-term strategies. So a couple of my really like awesome clients that came in this year, they were like, look, I don't want to do this over a year. I want to do this in 6 to 12 weeks. I'm like, sure. All right, let's do a VIP package. And I had a couple of them who are like, I just want to book a day of your time. And I just want to go through this from start to finish and map out my entire sales strategy. Or I want to get my podcast launch all mapped out, right? So sometimes having a way to immerse in the solution with you and get the entire process in one big chunk is priceless. So I'm actually going to be teaching a class on how to create and sell VIP days in January 2022. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know in the comments. I'll make sure we invite you when we do it. But that is my third way that I think you can quickly ramp up revenues. And it's not like you have to do a lot to fulfill on it. So it's not like you're doing this exclusive done for you package where you spend months and months and months of your time. They're getting into your brain and figuring out how to solve a problem and get a system or a solution that will help accelerate the results in their business. So these are 3 of my favorite ways to get a big boost of revenue. You could double your revenue this way, triple your revenue. Some people are even 5xing their revenue. You just have to decide what's going to be your way. Now, I cover a lot of different profit boosting strategies in the Profit Explosion Toolkit. I mentioned this earlier. It is the one system I use consistently with every single client for 16 years. Like I'm using the same process to unpack what your revenue potential is, to figure out how you're going to map out your revenue so it's consistent throughout the year, what you're going to offer when, and where are you going to like do client attraction and marketing so that people know what you're offering and it's selling. And so if that's an area that you're going to boost up this year, you definitely want to get it while it's on holiday special, 71% off. Head over to profitexplosiontoolkit.com and you'll get immediate access to the downloadable workbook, the entire 4-step planning toolkit, the 2 on-demand trainings, and an action guide to keep you accountable. So I'd love to hear what your revenue goal is going to be for 2022. Is this a stretch for you? Do you got it in the bag and you're like, okay, I think I know what I'm doing here? Or are you like, I have no idea. Like I'm going to need help figuring this out. Doesn't matter where you are, but just decide. Decide this is what you're going to do and then get the support you need to figure it out. Okay, we'll be back in next week. We're going to do part 3. And next week, I'm going to help you unpack a bit more of how to plan for this next level of revenue injection into your business. All right, bye for now.